Hi boys and girls, Pablum FishPig here to read you another simple story. All these stories are by Archibald Marshall, were written about a century ago. This one's called The Genii. Once there was an alchemist who was fond of making experiments, and one day when he had mixed two powders, there was a smoke so thick that it made him cough and his eyes water so that he had to shut them. And when he opened them again, the smoke had all cleared away, and there was a great figure standing there, looking at him. So the alchemist said, "Hello, who are you?" And the figure said, "You summoned me, and I am here." And he said, "Well, I didn't mean to summon you, it was quite an accident, but what are you? You look something like a man, but I suppose you can't be one, as you are made of smoke, and so much bigger." And the figure said, "No, I am a genie." He said, "I suppose you mean a genius, because nobody could be a genie. It isn't grammar." And he frowned and said, "Well, I can, and I don't care anything about grammar, and if we are going to begin like this, we shan't get on very well together." So the alchemist said, "Oh well, I suppose anybody can call himself what he likes, and I don't really mind. What are we going to do now?" So the genie looked a little more amiable, and he said, "Well, we can do anything you like within reason. You will find me very powerful." And the alchemist said, "It is lucky I summoned you. I have been trying for a long time to turn base metals into gold, and if you can help me do that, I shall be very much obliged to you." The genie said, "I don't know what base metals are, and anyhow I was not brought up to that sort of thing, but I can transport you anywhere you like in the twinkling of an eye." So the alchemist said, "Very well then, transport me to Timbuktu." And he didn't really believe he could do it, and he was only trying to be rather funny. But before his eye could twinkle, he found himself in Timbuktu, and he didn't like it much because it was so hot. So he said to the genie, "Well, I see you can do it all right, and if you will kindly transport me back again, we can think of somewhere else to go to." So he transported him back again in another twinkling of an eye, and then the alchemist said, "Well, I have been working rather hard lately, and I should like to have a day's holiday. Transport me to the seaside." So he did that, and the alchemist had a nice bathe in the sea, and then he said, "Transport me to an inn," and he had a good dinner, and then another bathe, because he was fond of swimming, and then he said, "I think we might go home now." So the genie transported him home, and he said, "Well, thank you very much. I have had a nice day and have enjoyed it, and I shan't want you any more at present, but I suppose I can summon you when I like." And the genie said, "Oh yes," and he disappeared. Well, the alchemist went on being an alchemist for some time, but presently he said, "Well, I don't seem to be getting on at this, and it seems rather silly when you can be transported anywhere you like in the twinkling of an eye, not to take advantage of it. Perhaps I could set up as a special messenger." So he went to some people who wrote a lot of letters to America about business, and it was not long after Christopher Columbus had discovered America, so the letters had to go in sailing ships, which they called caramels then, and it took a long time to get an answer. And he said, "Look here, if I can take a letter for you to America and bring back an answer in the twinkling of an eye, what will you pay me for it?" And they didn't think he could do it, but was only trying to be funny, so they said £1,000, because they thought they would be funny too. So he said, "Well, of course I should have to wait long enough for them to write an answer. How much will you pay me if I bring it back the same day?" And they didn't think he could do that either, and they were laughing at him because they thought he was rather silly, so they said £2,000. And he said, "Very well then, write your letter." So they wrote their letter, and all they put in it was, "What do you think of this man?" And then they sealed it with their seals, so the alchemist didn't know what was in it. Well, he summoned the genie, and was transported to America in the twinkling of an eye, and he liked it very much, and thought he would like to stay there for a little, but he said, "I must take back the answer to the letter now, and I can easily come again when I have got my £2,000. So he took the letter to the people, and they said, "How did you come here? Because this letter was only written today." And he said, "My private genie brought me here in the twinkling of an eye." And they didn't believe him, and they said, "Oh, did he?" And he said, "Yes, he did." So they wrote in the letter, "This man is a liar. and then they sealed it with their seal, so he didn't know what was in it. Well, the people in London were very surprised when he took them the letter, and they said, "How did you do it?" And he told them about the genie, and they said, "Oh, well, that isn't fair. You didn't say anything about that, and we shan't pay you the 2,000 pounds. And he said, "You promised to, and if you don't, I shall summon my genie, and he will make you." Well, they were frightened at that, and they were annoyed with themselves because they had only put what they had in the letter, when they might have made a lot of money by writing about something in their business and getting an answer in the twinkling of an eye. So they said, "Well, we did promise, and we always keep our promises. People wouldn't do business with us if we didn't. So we will pay you the 2,000 pounds, but it is a great deal of money, and the letter you brought wasn't much good to us, so I suppose you won't mind taking another one at the same price?" And he said, "Do you mean for the same 2,000 pounds, or for another 2,000 pounds?" And they said, "Well, we were rather thinking of the same 2,000 pounds. So he said, "Oh, very well, I don't mind doing that, but I can't bring you the answer for a week, because I should like to stay in America for a little. It suits me, and I like the look of the people." So they said, "Oh, very well, but don't be longer than a week if you don't mind." So he was transported to America again, and enjoyed himself very much there, and saw a lot of the country, because the genie transported him wherever he wanted to go, and he didn't have to pay anything for it. Well, just as it was getting time for him to be transported back to England, he found he had run out of one of the powders which he mixed to summon the genie, and he couldn't buy it in America. So he had to sail back to England in a caramel, and it took him nearly 2 months to do it. And the people were angry at his being so long bringing them an answer to their letter, and they said, "It is no good to us now, and we are very sorry we paid you the 2,000 pounds. And he said, "Oh, well, I'm not." And after that he couldn't call up the genie again, because something had gone wrong with one of the powders. But he said, "Oh, never mind, I have got 2,000 pounds, and I have been twice to America, so I will make do with that." The end.